An elderly woman whispers something to Elon Musk in Chipotle. After hearing her words, he breaks down in tears, unable to contain his emotions. The morning sun cast a warm glow over the polished exterior of a sleek black Tesla as it glided effortlessly through the streets of Palo Alto. Inside the luxurious vehicle, Elon Musk sat in the back seat, his fingers dancing across the screen of his smartphone as he scrolled through an endless stream of emails. The soft hum of the electric motor was barely audible, creating an almost cocoon-like atmosphere within the car. As Elon's eyes darted from one message to another, a subtle rumble from his stomach served as a reminder that he hadn't eaten since early morning. He glanced at the digital clock on the dashboard, which read 10:28 a.m. The realization of his hunger momentarily pulled his attention away from the constant flow of business communications. "James," Elon called out to his chauffeur, his voice breaking the silence that had settled in the car. "I'm feeling quite hungry. Could you find us a quiet restaurant nearby? Somewhere not too crowded would be ideal." James, a middle-aged man with a neatly trimmed salt and pepper beard, nodded in acknowledgement. "Certainly, Mr. Musk. Any particular cuisine you're in the mood for?" Elon paused for a moment, considering his options. "You know, I'm actually craving Mexican food. It's been a while since I've had something like that." "Mexican it is, sir," James replied, his eyes scanning the road ahead as he navigated through the moderate morning traffic. "There are several options in the area. We have Reposado on Hamilton Avenue, which offers a more upscale dining experience. Or if you prefer something more casual, there's Palo Alto Sol on California Avenue." Elon shook his head slightly. "Those sound a bit too formal for what I'm looking for right now. Any other suggestions?" James thought for a moment before continuing. "Well, there's also Sancho's Taqueria, which is known for its authentic street-style tacos. Or if you're in the mood for something a bit different, we could try Vive Sol, which specializes in cuisine from the Yucatan Peninsula." As James listed off the options, Elon found himself not quite satisfied with any of them. He was about to suggest they keep looking when James added, almost as an afterthought, "Of course, there's always the Chipotle branch on El Camino Real if you're looking for something quick and simple." At the mention of Chipotle, Elon paused his email scanning. It had been years since he'd indulged in fast food, particularly Chipotle. The idea of a simple, no-fuss meal suddenly appealed to him. Plus, the timing seemed perfect to avoid the lunch rush before his afternoon meeting. "You know what, James? Chipotle sounds perfect," Elon decided. "It's been ages since I've had it, and it'll be quick. Let's head there." James nodded, smoothly changing lanes to head towards El Camino Real. "Very good, sir. We should be there in about 10 minutes. As they drove, Elon returned to his emails, but his mind occasionally wandered to thoughts of the upcoming meal. It was a small thing, but sometimes these little breaks from his usual routine brought unexpected pleasure. Before long, the Tesla was pulling into the parking lot of a modest Chipotle location. Elon looked up from his phone, taking in the familiar sight of the restaurant's exterior. Through the large windows, he could see that the interior was relatively empty, exactly what he had been hoping for. Only one table appeared to be occupied, promising the quiet meal he desired. As James brought the car to a stop, Elon tucked his phone into his pocket and prepared to exit. The morning sun was now high in the sky, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Elon stepped out of the car, the cool California air a refreshing change from the climate-controlled interior of the Tesla. "I shouldn't be too long, James," Elon said to his chauffeur. "Feel free to grab something for yourself if you'd like." James smiled and nodded. "Thank you, sir. I'll be here when you're ready." Elon made his way towards the entrance, his footsteps echoing slightly in the quiet parking lot. As he approached the glass doors, he could smell the familiar aroma of grilled meat and spices wafting through the air. It was a comforting scent, one that brought back memories of quick lunches grabbed between meetings in his earlier entrepreneurial days. Pushing open the door, Elon heard the familiar chime announcing his arrival. The cool air-conditioned interior was a stark contrast to the warmth outside. As he stepped inside, he immediately noticed the cleanliness of the establishment and the calm atmosphere that permeated the space. The staff behind the counter, who had been chatting quietly among themselves, immediately turned their attention to the new customer. Their eyes widened with surprise and excitement as they recognized him. Elon could see them whispering to each other, their movements becoming more animated as they realized who had just walked into their restaurant. For a moment, Elon considered turning back, wary of the attention his presence might attract. But his hunger won out, and he decided to proceed, hoping that the staff's professionalism would outweigh their excitement. As Elon approached the counter, he found himself behind an elderly woman in a wheelchair. She appeared frail, her thin frame seeming almost lost in the confines of the chair. Her hands, resting on the armrests, trembled slightly, a subtle but noticeable quiver that spoke of age and perhaps nervousness. The woman was attempting to place her order. Her voice was barely above a whisper, making it nearly impossible for the young woman at the cashier to understand her requests. The staff member, a girl in her early 20s with a name tag that read Chloe, leaned forward, straining to hear. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Chloe said, her voice a mix of patience and growing frustration. "Could you please repeat that? What kind of meat would you like in your burrito?" The lady's response was again too quiet to hear, her lips moving but producing little sound. Chloe looked up, her eyes darting between the elderly woman and Elon, who was standing patiently behind. The young cashier's excitement at seeing the famous entrepreneur was palpable, but it was clear she was trying to maintain her professionalism while dealing with the challenging customer before her. "Ma'am," Chloe tried again, speaking a bit louder this time, "we have chicken, steak, carnitas, or barbacoa. Which would you prefer?" The old woman looked up at the menu board, confusion evident in her eyes. She mumbled something that sounded like chicken, but then immediately shook her head and pointed at a different part of the menu. By this point, other staff members had taken notice of the situation. They whispered among themselves, pointing discreetly at Elon while trying to figure out how to manage the elderly woman's order. One worker, a young man who seemed particularly impatient, stepped forward. "Ma'am," he said, his tone bordering on disrespectful, "perhaps you'd like to step aside and let more important customers through while you decide." Elon, who had been observing the situation quietly, felt a surge of empathy for the elderly woman and disappointment at the staff's handling of the situation. Without hesitation, he stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on the wheelchair. "It's all right," Elon said calmly, addressing both the elderly woman and the staff. "There's no need to rush. Let's take our time to make sure the order is correct." He then crouched down beside the wheelchair, meeting the elderly woman at eye level. His tone was soft and reassuring, a stark contrast to the flustered voices around them. "Hello," he greeted her warmly. "May I help you with your order, ma'am?" The woman turned toward him, her expression softening with visible relief. A faint smile appeared on her lips as she gave a small nod. "That would be so kind of you," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. As Elon leaned in closer, he noticed a name tag pinned to the elderly woman's chest, Brenda Walsh. He listened attentively as she slowly articulated her order, her voice soft and deliberate. To ensure he got it right, he repeated each item back to her, carefully confirming her choices with a warm, reassuring tone. "So you'd like a chicken burrito," he confirmed, "and on the side you'd like some extra rice, black beans, and mild salsa. Is that correct?" Brenda nodded, the smile on her face growing wider. Elon turned to Chloe, who was watching the interaction with a mix of awe and embarrassment. "Did you get all that?" Elon asked her. Chloe nodded quickly, her fingers flying over the touchscreen to input the order. "Yes, sir. One chicken burrito with extra rice, black beans, and mild salsa on the side." As Chloe rang up the order, Elon reached for his wallet. Without hesitation, he handed over his credit card. "I'll take care of this," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. The simple act of kindness created a momentary hush among the watching staff members. They exchanged glances, a mix of admiration and shame evident on their faces. The young man who had suggested Brenda step aside looked particularly abashed, his earlier impatience replaced by embarrassment. As Chloe processed the payment, Elon turned back to the woman. "Your meal will be ready soon," he said gently. Would you like some help finding a table? Brenda nodded gratefully, and Elon carefully maneuvered her wheelchair towards a quiet corner of the restaurant. As he did so, he couldn't help but reflect on the situation. It was a small gesture, helping this elderly woman with her order, but the impact was clearly significant, not just for her but for the staff as well, who were now watching him with a newfound respect. After ensuring Brenda was comfortably situated at her chosen table, Elon returned to the counter to place his own order. The staff, still visibly affected by his earlier kindness, seemed eager to please him. "What can we get for you, Mr. Musk?" Chloe asked, her earlier nervousness replaced by a genuine desire to provide excellent service. Elon scanned the menu quickly before making his decision. "I'll have a chicken bowl, please," he said. "White rice, black beans, corn salsa, and fajita veggies. And could I get extra guacamole and lettuce?" Chloe nodded enthusiastically, her fingers flying over the touchscreen as she input his order. "Absolutely, sir. Anything else?" "That'll do, thank you," Elon replied with a smile. As he waited for his orders at the pickup station, Elon noticed the staff whispering excitedly among themselves. After a moment of apparent debate, Chloe approached him nervously. "Mr. Musk," she began, her voice slightly shaky, "we were wondering, would it be possible to get a photo with you? We're all huge fans of your work." Elon hesitated for a moment. He was generally reluctant to take photos in public, knowing how quickly they could spread on social media and attract unwanted attention. However, the earnest look on Chloe's face and the hopeful expressions of the other staff members made him reconsider. "All right," he agreed, "but on one condition. Please wait until after I've left to post anything online, or better yet, keep the photos private. I'd really appreciate it. I'd like to enjoy my meal in peace if that's possible." The staff nodded eagerly, their faces lighting up with excitement. They quickly gathered around Elon, and Chloe pulled out her phone to take several pictures. Throughout the impromptu photo session, Elon maintained a friendly smile, appreciating the staff's enthusiasm, while also feeling a bit uncomfortable with the attention. Once the photos were taken, Elon's order was ready. He picked up his tray and the woman's, deciding to deliver hers first before settling down to his own meal. As he approached her table, he noticed she seemed confused and agitated. "Here's your meal, Brenda," Elon said gently, setting the tray down in front of her. To his surprise, Brenda looked at the food with a mixture of confusion and distress. "I didn't order this," she insisted, her voice rising slightly. "Please take it away. I don't want it." Elon was taken aback by her reaction. He had personally helped her place the order just moments ago. Concerned, he gently asked, "Are you sure you don't want it, Brenda?" When she nodded firmly, he hesitated for a moment before picking up the tray and returning it to the pickup station, still puzzled by the sudden change in her demeanor. "Is everything okay, Mr. Musk?" Chloe asked, noticing his return with the full tray. Elon shook his head slightly. "It seems there's been some confusion. Brenda is insisting she didn't order this food." Chloe's brow furrowed in concern. "That's strange. Should we make her something else?" "No, let's just leave it here for now," Elon replied. "I think there might be more going on here than just a mixed-up order." Turning to the staff, Elon asked, "Did she come in with anyone? A caregiver or family member, perhaps?" The staff exchanged glances before one of them, a young man named Alex, spoke up. "No, sir. She came in alone in her wheelchair just a short moment before you arrived." Elon nodded, trying to hide his growing concern behind a neutral expression. The situation was becoming more complex by the minute, and he couldn't shake the feeling that Brenda might need more help than just assistance with her lunch order. With a sigh, he picked up his own tray and made his way to a corner table, positioning himself so he could keep an eye on Brenda while he ate. As he settled in and began to set up his tablet for some work, he couldn't help but wonder what would unfold next in this unexpectedly eventful lunch break. Elon had just taken a few bites of the chicken bowl when movement caught his eye. He looked up to see Brenda wheeling herself towards the pickup station. With a mixture of curiosity and concern, he watched as she retrieved the very same tray he had just returned moments ago. Brenda's movements were slow and somewhat unsteady as she maneuvered her wheelchair back to her table, balancing the food tray precariously between the chair's handles. Elon found himself tensing, ready to jump up and help if needed, but he held back, allowing Brenda the dignity of managing on her own. His decision proved correct, as Brenda successfully navigated back to her table without incident, carefully setting the tray down in front of her. Elon couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and puzzlement. The woman who had just insisted she hadn't ordered this food was now treating it as if it had been her intention all along. Trying not to stare, Elon turned his attention back to his own meal and the work on his tablet. However, he found his gaze continually drawn back to Brenda's table, where an increasingly strange scene was unfolding. Brenda seemed to be struggling with her burrito, at times attempting to take impossibly large bites, her mouth opening wide as if trying to consume half the burrito at once. Other times she would laugh quietly to herself or speak in hushed tones to an unseen companion. Her movements were uncoordinated as she picked at the rice, beans, and salsa, creating small piles on her tray only to mix them together again. The spectacle was concerning, drawing occasional glances from the staff, who seemed unsure whether to intervene. Elon found it increasingly difficult to focus on his work. He was about halfway through his meal when a sudden commotion broke the relative quiet of the restaurant. A choking sound cut through the air, immediately drawing everyone's attention to the elderly woman's table. Without hesitation, Elon abandoned his work and meal, rushing to Brenda's side. She was struggling to breathe, her face reddening as she clutched at her throat. Elon's mind raced, recalling first aid training he had undergone years ago. With practiced movements, Elon began administering firm pats to Brenda's back, hoping to dislodge whatever was causing her distress. "Breathe, Brenda," he encouraged, his voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. "Try to cough if you can." After several tense moments, Brenda's coughing became more productive. Elon called out to the nearest staff member, "Bring some napkins, quickly." As the young employee rushed over with a handful of napkins, Brenda finally managed to expel the piece of food that had been choking her. She gasped for air, her breathing ragged but steadying. Elon gently patted her back, offering words of comfort. "You're okay now, Brenda. Just take slow, deep breaths." As the immediate danger passed, Brenda's demeanor changed dramatically. She looked down at her tray, now splattered with the remnants of her partially chewed food, and burst into tears. "Oh, Richard," she wailed, addressing no one in particular. "Look what I've done to your lunch. I've ruined it." Elon exchanged a confused glance with Chloe, who had come over to check on the situation. "It's okay, ma'am," Chloe said softly. "We can get you a new meal if you'd like. A takeaway, perhaps." But Brenda seemed not to hear her. She gestured towards the empty chair across from her, her voice rising in distress. "I don't need a takeaway. I need it replaced. Can't you see my husband's here? Richard needs his lunch." It was then that Elon noticed something he had overlooked before. Sitting on the table, partially obscured by Brenda's tray, was a small, ornate urn. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The husband Brenda had been talking to wasn't merely invisible, he was no longer living. The heartbreaking reality of the situation settled over Elon and the watching staff. Brenda wasn't just confused. She was living in a world where her deceased husband was still present, still needing his lunch, still an active part of her day-to-day life. As Elon stood there, one hand still resting comfortingly on Brenda's shoulder, he knew that this lunch break had become far more than a simple meal. He was now deeply involved in a situation that would require all of his compassion and problem-solving skills to navigate. The atmosphere in the restaurant had shifted dramatically. The earlier excitement of the staff at Elon's presence had been replaced by a somber awareness of Brenda's situation. Elon could see the conflicting emotions on their faces, concern for Brenda mixed with uncertainty about how to handle the delicate situation. The younger staff members, Alex, who looked like just a teenage boy, approached Brenda's table. His discomfort was evident in his stiff posture and the way he avoided direct eye contact. "Ma'am," Jake said, his voice cracking slightly, "there's no one sitting across from you. The seat is empty." Brenda's head snapped up, her eyes flashing with indignation. "Young man," she said, her voice sharp, I may be old, but I'm not blind. My husband is sitting right there. You young people these days, no respect for your elders." Jake took a step back, clearly taken aback by Brenda's vehemence. He opened his mouth to argue further, but Elon quickly intervened. "Hey, your name's Jake, right?" Elon said quietly but firmly, looking at his name tag. Jake nodded, a bit startled. "Jake, why don't you go ahead and prepare a fresh burrito for Brenda? I'll handle it from here," Elon said, his tone calm yet authoritative. Jake looked relieved at the opportunity to retreat from the uncomfortable situation. He nodded and hurried back to the counter with Chloe, whispering to his colleagues as he went. Elon turned his attention back to Brenda, who was still muttering about disrespectful youth. He knelt beside her wheelchair, bringing himself to her eye level. "Brenda," he said gently, "I'm sorry about the confusion. We're going to get you a fresh meal, okay? Would you like it to be the same as before, chicken burrito with extra rice, black beans, and mild salsa on the side?" Brenda's anger seemed to dissipate as quickly as it had flared. She looked at Elon with a blend of confusion and gratitude. "Yes, that would be lovely. Thank you, Richard. You're always so kind." Elon smiled gently, choosing not to correct her as she now referred to him as Richard. "It's my pleasure, Brenda," he said warmly. "I'll be right back with your food." As Elon stood and made his way to the counter, he could feel the eyes of the staff on him. They had been watching the interaction closely, and he could see a mix of admiration and curiosity in their expressions. At the counter, Elon quietly paid for the replacement meal. As Jake prepared the fresh burrito, Elon took a moment to address the staff. "I know this situation is unusual," he said in a low voice, "but it's important that we handle it with compassion. Brenda is clearly dealing with some cognitive issues, possibly Alzheimer's or dementia. The best thing we can do is to be patient and kind." The staff nodded, their earlier frustration replaced by understanding. Chloe, the cashier, spoke up. "Thank you, Mr. Musk. We're not really trained for situations like this. It's helpful to have some guidance, especially from someone like you." Elon nodded, appreciating their willingness to learn. Sometimes the most important thing is just to be human, to show kindness and understanding, even when it's challenging. As Jake finished preparing the fresh burrito, Elon took the tray and returned to Brenda's table. He set it down gently in front of her, making sure to position it so it wouldn't interfere with the urn. "Here you are, Brenda," he said warmly. "A fresh meal for you and Richard." Brenda's face lit up with a smile. "Oh, thank you, dear. Richard, look how kind this young man is. The restaurant has replaced our meal." Elon felt a pang in his heart as he watched Brenda speak to her absent husband. The love and devotion in her voice were palpable, making the reality of her situation all the more poignant. As Elon returned to his own table, he found himself deeply affected by what he had witnessed. The simple act of getting lunch had turned into a profound reminder of the challenges many people face in their daily lives. He realized that his own problems, the stress of running multiple companies, the pressure of public scrutiny, paled in comparison to the quiet struggle Brenda was facing. Settling back into his seat, Elon tried to refocus on his work, but his mind kept drifting back to Brenda. He couldn't help but wonder about her life, her story, and how she had come to be alone in this restaurant, navigating a world that had become confusing and challenging. As the afternoon wore on, Elon found himself torn between his scheduled commitments and a growing sense of responsibility towards Brenda. He knew he couldn't simply walk away, leaving her to fend for herself. But what could he do? How could he ensure her safety and well-being without overstepping boundaries? These questions weighed heavily on his mind as he watched Brenda finish her meal, all the while chatting animatedly with her invisible companion. As Elon began to wrap up his meal, planning a quick departure to make it to his afternoon meeting, he was startled by a presence behind him. Turning, he found Brenda had wheeled herself to his table, the cremation urn clutched tightly in her lap. "Richard," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "why are you sitting here all alone?" The question caught Elon off guard. Despite their earlier interactions, it was clear that Brenda didn't recognize him. Her confusion, evident in her furrowed brow and uncertain gaze, tugged at Elon's heart. Taking a deep breath, Elon decided to respond gently, hoping to avoid upsetting her. "I'm sorry, Brenda," he said softly, "but I'm not Richard. My name is Elon Musk. We met earlier when I helped you with your order, remember?" Brenda's expression didn't change. She simply repeated her question. "Richard, why aren't you sitting with me? Don't you want to finish your lunch?" It was becoming increasingly clear that Brenda was unable to retain new information or recognize that Elon wasn't her husband. Her repetitive questioning and inability to process his responses further confirmed his suspicions about her condition. As Elon pondered how to handle this delicate situation, he noticed something tucked into Brenda's belt, an ID card. Gently, he reached out and carefully examined it, hoping it might provide some crucial information. The card confirmed his fears. It was a medical alert ID, indicating that Brenda had been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's disease. More importantly, it listed an address on Willow Creek Lane. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Elon knew he had to take immediate action to ensure Brenda's safety. He couldn't in good conscience allow her to leave the restaurant alone, potentially wandering the streets in her confused state. Making a quick decision, Elon decided to play along with Brenda's perception of reality, hoping it would keep her calm and cooperative. "You're right, Brenda," he said, adopting a gentle tone. "I'm sorry for sitting over here. We were having such a nice lunch together, weren't we? I think it might be time for us to head home now. What do you say?" Brenda's face lit up with a smile. "Oh yes, Richard, that would be lovely. I am feeling a bit tired." Elon stood up, carefully pushing in his chair. "All right then, let's get you home. Just let me take care of a few things first, okay?" Brenda nodded happily, seemingly content now that Richard was paying attention to her. Elon quickly made his way to the counter, where the staff had been watching the interaction with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "I need to apologize," Elon said to Chloe and the others, "but I'm going to have to take care of this situation. Brenda needs help getting home safely." The staff nodded understandingly. Chloe spoke up. "We appreciate everything you've done, Mr. Musk. Is there anything we can do to help?" Elon shook his head. "Thank you, but I think I can manage from here. I've found her address on her ID card, so I'll make sure she gets home safely." As Elon turned to leave, he noticed the staff exchanging glances. Some were even clapping softly, clearly moved by his willingness to go above and beyond for a stranger in need. Outside the restaurant, Elon signaled to his chauffeur, James, who had been waiting patiently in the Tesla. As James approached, Elon quickly explained the situation. "James, we need to help this lady get home," Elon said, gesturing to Brenda. "She's confused and needs assistance. Can you help me get her and her wheelchair into the car?" James, ever professional, nodded without hesitation. "Of course, Mr. Musk, I'll prepare the car right away." Together, Elon and James carefully assisted Brenda into the Tesla, ensuring both she and the cremation urn she refused to release were secure. James then folded the wheelchair and stored it in the trunk. As they prepared to leave, Elon couldn't help but reflect on how differently this day had turned out from what he had planned. A simple lunch break had turned into a rescue mission of sorts, reminding him of the unexpected ways life can challenge and change us. With Brenda safely settled in the car, Elon took one last look at the Chipotle restaurant before sliding into the back seat beside her. As James started the engine, Elon knew that their journey was far from over. The drive to Willow Creek Lane promised to be an enlightening experience, one that would further reveal the complexities of Brenda's situation and the depth of human compassion. The Tesla glided smoothly through the streets of Palo Alto, its electric motor humming quietly as it carried its unexpected group of passengers. Elon sat beside Brenda in the back seat, occasionally glancing at her to ensure she was comfortable. Brenda held the urn tightly in her lap, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns on its surface. During the short drive, Elon attempted to engage Brenda in conversation, hoping to learn more about her situation. Her responses fluctuated between moments of clarity and confusion, sometimes addressing him as Richard, other times seeming to understand he was a stranger helping her. "Brenda," Elon said gently, "can you tell me about your home? Who lives there with you?" Brenda looked at him, her eyes momentarily focused, "Oh, it's just me and Richard now. Our daughter, Kathy, used to live with us, but she moved out years ago. She visits when she can, but she's so busy with her work." Elon nodded, filing away this information. "And does Kathy help take care of you?" Brenda's brow furrowed slightly. "Take care of me? Why, Richard, I don't need taking care of. I'm perfectly capable of managing on my own." Before Elon could respond, Brenda's attention shifted to the window. "Oh, look," she exclaimed. "We're almost home. I do hope I remembered to water the flowers this morning." In less than 15 minutes, the Tesla pulled up to a modest house on Willow Creek Lane. The front yard showed signs of neglect. Overgrown grass and wilting flowers suggested the struggles of its occupants. Elon felt a pang of sadness as he took in the scene, imagining Brenda trying to maintain the home in her confused state. "James," Elon said to his chauffeur, "please stay with Brenda while I check the house." Elon stepped out of the car and approached the front door. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the worn welcome mat as he rang the doorbell. He waited, listening for any signs of movement inside the house. After a moment, the door opened to reveal a woman in her late 40s. Her appearance spoke volumes about her current state: dark circles under her eyes, disheveled hair, and clothes that looked like they had been slept in. Despite her exhausted appearance, there was a striking resemblance to Brenda in her features. The woman's eyes widened in shock as she recognized Elon. You're Elon Musk," she stammered. "What are you doing here?" Before Elon could respond, the woman's gaze shifted to the Tesla parked in front of the house. She gasped as she spotted Brenda in the back seat. "Mom!" she cried out, pushing past Elon and rushing towards the car. Elon followed her, watching as she threw open the car door and embraced Brenda. "Oh, Mom," the woman said, her voice choked with emotion. "I've been looking everywhere for you. Where have you been?" Brenda looked at the woman with a mixture of confusion and recognition. "Kathy, is that you, dear? Why are you so upset?" Kathy turned to Elon, tears glistening in her eyes. "She's been missing for 2 days. I've been out of my mind with worry. How did you find her?" Elon quickly recounted the events at Chipotle, observing as Kathy's expression moved from relief to gratitude, and then to a touch of embarrassment. "I can't believe she managed to get all the way to Chipotle," Kathy said, shaking her head in disbelief. "And I can't believe Elon Musk of all people found her and brought her home. I don't even know how to thank you. I'm so sorry for not greeting you and thanking you properly sooner." She extended her hand. "I'm Kathy Walsh, Brenda's daughter." "Nice to meet you, Kathy," Elon said, offering a reassuring smile. "Really, there's no need to thank me. When I saw Brenda at the restaurant, I just couldn't leave her alone, especially when she seemed confused. She's lucky to have that ID card with her. It made it possible for me to bring her here safely." He glanced toward Brenda, who was holding the urn tightly in her lap. "Shall we help her inside?" Together, Elon and Kathy helped Brenda out of the car. James retrieved the wheelchair from the trunk, and they carefully settled Brenda into it. As they made their way towards the house, Brenda insisted on wheeling herself, a small assertion of independence that both Elon and Kathy respectfully acknowledged. At the door, Kathy took the urn from Brenda's lap, her movement suggesting this was a familiar routine. She invited Elon inside for tea, her voice tinged with both gratitude and embarrassment. Elon hesitated for a moment, aware of his upcoming meeting, but as he looked at Brenda, peacefully settled in her wheelchair, and Kathy, her exhaustion evident in every movement, he knew he couldn't simply leave. He was too invested now, too curious about Brenda's story and how she had ended up alone at Chipotle. "Thank you," Elon said, nodding to Kathy. "I'd like that." As he followed them into the house, Elon knew that his afternoon plans would have to wait. There was a story here, one of struggle and love and the challenges of caring for a family member with Alzheimer's, and Elon found himself compelled to learn more, to understand the human drama unfolding in this modest home on Willow Creek Lane. As they entered the house, Elon was immediately struck by the atmosphere. While modest and clean, the space felt heavy with stress and recent loss. Family photos lined the walls, showing happier times. Brenda and an older man, presumably Richard in their younger days, and pictures of Kathy growing up. Kathy efficiently moved through what was clearly a practiced routine. She helped Brenda get comfortable in her favorite chair, then moved to the kitchen to prepare tea. Elon watched as she discreetly administered Brenda's medication, her movements suggesting years of caregiving experience. "Please make yourself comfortable," Kathy called to Elon, gesturing towards the couch. Elon settled onto the worn but clean sofa, his eyes taking in the details of the living room. A pile of medical bills rested on a side table, accompanied by a small stack of brochures for care homes, silent evidence of the family's struggles. Kathy returned moments later with a tray of tea, her movements practiced but weary. She set it down on the coffee table, the weight of her exhaustion evident in the way she held herself as she sat beside him. "I can't thank you enough for bringing my mother home, Mr. Musk," Kathy said as she poured the tea. "I've been out of my mind with worry." Elon accepted the cup with a nod. "Please, call me Elon. And there's no need for thanks, I'm just glad we could help and Brenda's safe. But if you don't mind me asking, how did Brenda end up at Chipotle alone?" Kathy sighed heavily, sinking into an armchair across from Elon. It's been a challenging time," she began. "I work 2 jobs, night shift as a nurse and mornings at the local supermarket. We've been struggling with mounting medical bills, especially since my father's passing 3 months ago." Elon listened intently as Kathy continued to share their situation. The stress in her voice was palpable as she explained the financial strain they were under. "Dad's medical bills still aren't fully paid off, and now with Mum's treatment, it's just been so overwhelming," Kathy said, her voice wavering as she fought to keep her composure. "I hate to admit it, but in my exhaustion, I forgot to lock the door the other day. When I came home from my night shift, Mum was gone by morning. I've asked the neighbors, but, strangely, no one saw her. I called the police and their search didn't turn up anything. And then, there you were with my mum. I just couldn't believe it." Kathy wiped the little beads of tears forming at the corner of her eyes. As Kathy spoke, Elon couldn't help but notice Brenda's behavior. The medication she had taken earlier seemed to be taking effect. Her earlier agitation had calmed, replaced by a growing drowsiness. She sat in her chair, her eyes half closed, occasionally murmuring to herself. "Your role as a nurse must help in managing your mother's condition," Elon observed. Kathy nodded. "It does in some ways, but it also makes it harder. I know exactly what's happening to her, what's coming next, and I know I'm not giving her the level of care she really needs. But what choice do I have?" The weight of Kathy's daily life became clear as she detailed her exhausting schedule. Caring for her mother between shifts, the constant worry about leaving Brenda alone, the struggle to afford proper care. As they talked, Brenda's drowsiness increased. Kathy noticed and excused herself to help her mother to bed. Elon could hear gentle murmuring from the bedroom as Kathy settled Brenda for rest. When Kathy returned to the living room, the weight of her situation was evident in every movement. She sank back into her chair, looking at Elon with a mixture of gratitude and embarrassment. "I'm sorry you had to see all of this," she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of weariness. "It's not exactly how I imagined meeting Elon Musk." She managed a weak chuckle, trying to lighten the heavy mood. Elon shook his head. "Please don't apologize. If anything, I'm grateful for the perspective this has given me. Your dedication to your mother is admirable." Elon smiled warmly, his tone gentle. "You know, life has a funny way of bringing people together in unexpected ways," he said. "But honestly, Kathy, I'm just glad I could help. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can make the biggest difference." He paused for a moment, looking at her with genuine understanding. "You're doing incredible things for your family, and I can see how much you care. You're stronger than you know." As the mid-afternoon sun poured through the windows, painting golden patterns on the floor, Elon found himself deeply moved by Kathy and Brenda's story. The challenges they faced each day felt so far removed from his world of cutting-edge technology and ambitious space exploration. Yet in their quiet resilience and determination, their struggles felt just as monumental, a reminder of the strength of family and the human spirit. Elon knew he couldn't simply walk away from this situation. As he sat there, listening to the distant hum of a bedroom fan and Brenda's occasional murmurs, his mind began to work on how he might be able to help. The decision he was about to make would have far-reaching consequences, not just for Kathy and Brenda, but for his own understanding of the human impact one person could have. As the conversation lulled, Elon leaned forward, his expression serious. "Kathy," he began, "I'd like to help." Kathy's reaction was immediate and firm. She sat up straighter, her posture defensive. "Mr. Musk, Elon, I appreciate your kindness, but we don't need charity. We'll manage somehow." Elon could see the pride and independence in Kathy's eyes, traits that had likely helped her persevere through the challenges she'd faced. He knew he needed to approach this carefully. "It's not about charity, Kathy," Elon said gently. "It's about ensuring Brenda receives the care she needs. You're doing an incredible job, but you shouldn't have to do it alone." Kathy's expression softened slightly, but she still looked uncertain. Elon continued, his voice calm and reassuring. "I have some connections that might be able to help. There's an excellent elder care nanny I know from a friend who could provide professional care for Brenda while you're at work. It would ensure Brenda's safety and give you peace of mind." As he spoke, Elon reached for his checkbook and business card. With practiced efficiency, he wrote out a check, the amount making Kathy's eyes widen. "This should cover the outstanding medical bills," Elon explained, handing over the check and his business card. "And I'd like to arrange and cover the costs of the professional care for Brenda. It's not charity, Kathy, it's just one human being helping another in a difficult situation. And I really hope you will accept." Kathy stared at the check in her hand, her eyes filling with tears. I don't know what to say," she whispered. Elon leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Say you'll accept the help, for Brenda's sake and for your own." After a moment of hesitation, Kathy nodded, her shoulders sagging with relief. "Thank you," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "This will make such a difference." Elon smiled warmly. "I'm glad I can help. Now about the nanny, if you're agreeable, I can reach out to her right away. With any luck, she might be able to start tomorrow or the day after." Kathy nodded eagerly. "That would be amazing. I've been so worried about leaving Mom alone while I'm at work. Our current CCTV setup isn't much help. I can't exactly check my phone constantly during my shifts." "Exactly," Elon agreed. "Having someone trustworthy and reliable here will be a massive relief for you. And please don't worry about the cost, I'll take care of it." As they discussed the details, Elon could see the tension leaving Kathy's body. The prospect of professional help and financial relief seemed to lift years of stress from her shoulders. By the time they had finalized the arrangements, Elon knew it was time for him to leave, but he felt a sense of satisfaction that he hadn't felt in a long time. The problems he usually dealt with, advancing space technology, developing sustainable energy solutions, were important, but there was something uniquely fulfilling about making an immediate, tangible difference in someone's life. As he prepared to depart, Elon knew that his involvement in Brenda and Kathy's lives wasn't over. He had set something in motion, and he was committed to seeing it through. The next steps would involve coordinating with the nanny and ensuring that Brenda received the best possible care. But for now he could leave knowing that he had brought some hope and relief to a family in need. With arrangements made and his contact information left with Kathy, Elon prepared to take his leave. He was careful not to overstay, mindful of Kathy's need to process everything that had happened and tend to Brenda. "Thank you again, Elon," Kathy said as she walked him to the door. "I don't know how we can ever repay you for your kindness." Elon shook his head, a gentle smile on his face. "There's no need for repayment. Just take care of yourself and Brenda. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything else." As Elon stepped out onto the porch, the cool evening air a stark contrast to the emotional warmth of the house, he turned back to Kathy. "I'll be in touch tomorrow about the nanny. Try to get some rest tonight." Kathy nodded, her eyes still glistening with unshed tears of gratitude. "I will. Thank you, Elon. Truly." With a final wave, Elon made his way down the path to his waiting Tesla. James, ever professional, held the door open as Elon slid into the familiar leather interior of the back seat. As the car pulled away from the curb, Elon found his mind racing with the events of the day. What had started as a simple lunch break had turned into something far more profound. He pulled out his phone, knowing there was one more call he needed to make before he could fully process everything. "Heather, it's Elon Musk," he said as soon as the call connected. "I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. I have a situation I'd like to discuss with you." Over the next few minutes, Elon explained Brenda and Kathy's situation to Heather, the elder care nanny he had mentioned to Kathy. He detailed Brenda's condition, Kathy's work schedule, and the urgent need for professional care. "I understand it's short notice," Elon said, "but would you be willing to take on this case? I'll cover your monthly salary myself." There was a brief pause before Heather's voice came through the speaker. "Of course, Mr. Musk, I'd be happy to help. I can come to the address tomorrow morning and meet with Kathy myself." Elon felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Thank you, Heather. I appreciate your flexibility. Please keep me updated on how things go." After ending the call, Elon leaned back in his seat, letting out a long breath. He caught James's eye in the rearview mirror. "Quite a day, huh, James?" Elon said, a faint smile playing at the corners of his lips. "One minute you were suggesting Chipotle, and now this. I can't help but wonder what would have happened to Brenda if I had chosen another restaurant earlier. Do you think anyone else would help her back to her house today, James?" James paused for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "Honestly, I'm not sure, sir," he said, his voice steady. "You never know how people will respond in situations like that. But what matters is that you were there for her when she needed it. Sometimes it takes just one person to make all the difference." He offered a small, genuine smile. "I'm glad it was you, Elon," his eyes returning to the road. "If you don't mind me saying, it was a very kind thing you did for that family." Elon's smile grew thoughtful. "You know, James, it's made me realize something. We all face our own battles in life. My days are filled with media pressure, political challenges, and the stress of running multiple businesses. But then you encounter someone like Kathy, dealing with such immediate, dire needs." He trailed off, his gaze drifting to the passing scenery outside the window. After a moment, he continued, "It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Each person has their own capacity for handling life's challenges. Sometimes a small act of kindness, whether it's helping an elderly woman order lunch or providing support to a struggling family, can make a significant difference." James nodded in agreement. "Very true, sir. It's a reminder of our shared humanity." As the Tesla continued towards his next appointment, Elon found his mind still dwelling on the day's unexpected encounters. The meeting he had been so focused on this morning now seemed less pressing in light of what he had experienced. He realized that amidst the grand visions and world-changing projects he pursued daily, there was still immense value in these small, personal acts of kindness. The look of relief on Kathy's face, the moment of clarity in Brenda's eyes. These were the kinds of impacts that couldn't be measured in stock prices or technological advancements, but were no less important. As the neighborhood faded into the distance behind them, Elon made a silent promise to himself. He would continue to push the boundaries of technology and exploration, but he would also remain open to these simple, powerful moments of human connection. After all, wasn't the ultimate goal of all his work to improve the lives of people like Brenda and Kathy, to make the world a little brighter, a little safer, and a little more compassionate? With this thought, Elon pulled out his tablet ready to tackle his next challenge. But as he worked, a part of his mind remained with the family on Willow Creek Lane and the unexpected journey that had led him there. It was a reminder that sometimes the most profound impacts we can have are the ones we never saw coming.